Hello, and this is section 2.8 on absolute value equations and inequalities. We're going to start with a discussion on absolute value equations because forms the basis of everything else that we're going to say. So what do we mean by an absolute value? Well, of course, most people know that if you said something like find the absolute value of -3, well, you know that that means that we're going to take the positive value of the quantity -3. That is, the absolute value of -3 would be equal to +3. But what happens when we start putting in variables inside of this absolute value brackets? Then what do? Well, we need a definition, and this is the definition that's placed on page 156 of our textbook. It says if a, some fixed number a, is greater than or equal to 0, and the absolute value of x is equal to a, then x is equal to a, or x is equal to -a. So let's say that I was told, for instance, that the absolute value of x was equal to 3. How should we think of that here in terms of this definition? Well, what we can say is that the absolute value of x is actually, we could think of the distance of x from 0. So this is really a distance. The distance of x to 0, the origin on the number line, is 3. Well, how could that happen? Well, it could say that means that if we started at 0 and counted 3 to the right, that x equals 3. Well, certainly, if x is equal to 3, its absolute value is equal to 3 itself. What about the other way? Couldn't the distance from 0 to -3 also be 3, right? Whenever we talk about distance, we are all talking about a positive value. And of course, we know that if we were to set x equal to -3, as we stated initially, then the absolute value of -3 would also be 3. Right? So in other words, the solution to the equation, absolute value of x equals 3, is x equals 3 or x equals -3, both of which provide us the same value as an output. All right, so an absolute value, if we think of that as a distance along a number line, can help. But our basic rule right here is that if we have some unknown quantity inside of our absolute value bracket set equal to a fixed positive number, then our rule tells us take that absolute value, that quantity in the absolute value, and set it equal to both the positive or the negative of a, and include both of those as possible solutions. So let's go through an example or two of this. Let's say that we're told that the absolute value of x plus 3 is equal to 1. Well, what does that mean? By our rule, we say whatever the unknown quantity is inside of the absolute value brackets, we're going to set that equal to either the negative or positive value of the quantity on the outside. So this really means that we've got two equations to solve. X plus 3 is equal to -1. Try that again so my pen doesn't leak. Is equal to -1, or x plus 3 is equal to +1. Leaky pen. Okay, so, well, now we've got two equations. We know how to solve both of these the same way. We're going to get x. We're going to subtract 3 from both sides of the inequality in this case, and we're going to get x is equal to -4. Or, if we subtract 3 from both sides of this inequality, we're going to get x is equal to -2. Well, how can we be getting two solutions for this one little equation? In fact, both of them work, and we can check our work by substitution. If you check, it certainly makes sense then that if we were to take the absolute value of -4, pardon me, plus 3, we would get 1 because -4 plus 3 is -1. The absolute value of -1 is 1. if we put in negative 2 in place of x, we get negative 2 plus 3. And we can easily show that this is the same thing as saying the absolute value of 1 is 1. Well, as expected, that works. So we actually have two solutions to this equation. One more. Let's say it looked like this one. In B, the absolute value of 2 minus 3x is equal to 2. Now, it looks a little funnier, but it works exactly the same way. So let's try it again. Our rule tells us that if we have a quantity inside the absolute value brackets, let's set it equal to 2 minus 3x, set that equal to negative 2, and say or. We specifically use the word or here because, right, both of these are equivalent solutions. 2 minus 3x is equal to positive 2. All right, so let's do a little bit of a solution right here. We subtract 2 from both sides of our equation. We get negative 3x is equal to negative 4. And dividing both sides by negative 3 isolates x, gives us x is equal to 4/3. Or, let's try it the other way around. Let's subtract 2 from each side of this inequality right here to isolate our x term. Negative 3x is equal to 0. Then we divide both sides by negative 3, divide by negative 3, and we get x is equal to 0. So in fact, we've got two solutions again, x equals 4/3 or x equals 0. And you should check by substitution that this is true. And yes, it does make sense because the absolute value of 2 minus 3 times 4/3 will equal 2, simply because 4/3 times 3 gives us 4. We've got the absolute value of 2 minus 4 is equal to 2. And so, of course, that's negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is equal to 2. Substituting in 0, very easy. 2 minus 3 times 0 equals 2. Well, yes, because that's 0, so we've got the absolute value of 2 equal to 2. So we have our two solutions right here. More in the next video.